All right, good morning, TCLN. I wanted to answer a few questions that had to do with ICE. Okay, so number one, I have a file here. You see this file. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some dates, okay? So I want to answer a few questions that was up under my TikTok so that you people can be informed, okay? So number one person asked, what plan do they have for you, ma'am? What do you own that they may want? Well, let's look at it. Okay, now you know that in the United States of America, if your family is from here and your families and all that kind of stuff, they have what's called a U.S. consensus, right? This means that anyone can basically, government, anyone, anyone, you can go down to any public library or look in the genealogy section, or you can just go to government records and you can look up what's called a U.S. consensus. Okay, so in my U.S. consensus, it was actually a Caucasian woman who pointed this out to me because I had no idea. You know, a lot of stuff we go through life and we just kind of don't know. We hear the family talking, but we just kind of don't know. But in my U.S. consensus, I had family member who owned plenty of land in Texas. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, let's continue to answer his question. That was one question. Number two, what I wanted to say about ICE is that some of the cases are being feigned, but they're not necessarily being feigned by actual everybody in the ICE, right? They're being feigned by particular people because there's a lot of talk on the internet about people targeting people, right? So there's a lot of targeting that's going on in the United States of America. You got people all over TikTok that's been talking about it like crazy. And we're not just talking about ICE, we're talking about all different kinds of situations, all different kinds of circumstances, covens, cliques, clans, all of that, right? The reason why I wanted to point out how this was done before the Trump era, because like I said, and I can't show you everything because I am talking to an attorney right now, but like I said, the date originally on this case was back in 2007. Trump wasn't even thought about as no president in 2007. I will say it again. Many people did not know what ICE was until Trump got into office and these things started happening. Do you understand that? A lot of people had no idea what ICE even was. The only people who knew what ICE was is the people who were being deported because they were illegal immigrants and the people who worked in that field. A lot of people, and sometimes people just can't be honest with themselves, but a lot of people really didn't even know what ICE was or what it stood for, again, until Trump got into office. There's another date from 4/15/2008. Again, Trump not thought of. Another date from 4/21/2010. In these documents and records, and I have all of this, in these documents and records, it had unlawful entry into the United States. It also had a plan to reinstate deportation. And so you must understand these were plotted way before even a Trump was in office and before we was even thinking about ICE, and all this stuff is happening today. So what this record shows, and like they said, they were targeting some people in Chicago who were black families and stuff, saying they were from ICE. But what these records are showing, they're literally showing that these plots have been playing out for a while. Like I said, everybody want to blame Trump for everything. Everything is not about Trump. The persons who put this together is the persons that would need the blame. Do you understand that? The only reason why I found out about it, like I said, is because of bad character polices. And I wouldn't have never, ever found out about it. I had no idea that this was there. I had no idea that it existed. And I'm glad it found out. And I'm also glad that I have the dates, numbers, and all of that, because it goes to show you that this was plotted well long before. Now, mind you, I've had drug tests done. I've had employment test things done. I've had all of that. This is something that if it was really something that was, true, then there's no way you would be employed. There was no any of that. The attorney had my birth certificate in her presence at the same time. of we looking at this, right? So that's to answer your question. Another person said, well, I've known about ICE since the Clinton days, and this person is a Spanish person. They said that I've known about ICE since the Clinton days. I've known about ICE since these days and that days. And my father was deported and didn't nobody care then, so why should I care now? Let me answer that question. Number one, your father was deported because he was not a U.S. citizen. We, on the other hand, are United States citizens. You cannot plot cases on us and tell lies on our families when we have birth certificates and consensuses and records that are documented for histories and ages. You just can't do that. And just to show just how much it's a mishap, I want to show you this. What Mexican do you know have the last name Washington? And so when not young men, because this person not young at all, if they claiming they knew about this since those days, but when this person said that they've been knowing about that and didn't nobody care, the truth is half of us were little kids at that time. So how are we going to care in the first place? We were young and teenagers ourselves. We never even heard of no ICE. You understand what I'm saying? So don't blame us for things that has to do with that. You can't start putting lying records on us and lie on us and flip scripts on us on things that we had no power and no control over. Do you know how old I was during Clinton days? Do you know how old I was way back in the days that you were talking about? I was a young lady myself. Like I said, we had nothing to do with that. We are U.S., United States citizens. Our families are. Records, grandmother, great-grandmother, fathers, great-grandfathers. We didn't come over here as immigrants. So you can't start just throwing cases on us, lying on our names, and then trying to disrupt our lives because of what is happening. That has nothing to do with us. We didn't do it. It's not our fault. Do you understand that? So that's to answer you guys' questions. So I hope that you understand that these cases are real and these cases have been feigned. And I'm so glad that the attorney was able to point this out. This was actually national. I had no idea. I never even heard of this, didn't even know it. And I looked her dead in the face and I talked to her. I said, ma'am, have you ever known a Mexican to be from Mexico and their last name is Washington? I said, have you ever known a Mexican or anyone of Latino origin to marry a black person and they take on the name Washington? And I told her to her face, I said, there's a reason why they do not take the name Washington. Washington is known as a slave master's name. It's not even my family's name. We only have 4 people in my family named Washington. I can point them out on hand. It's not even our family name. Do you understand? So the point is that when you got my birth certificate sitting before you, and this has been concocted throughout 2007, 2008, and 2010, that means you were building a record. That means you had a plot and you had a plan. Now, guys, I want you to go back and look at my stuff because remember, I made a video. People were strategically doing this. I made a video about the children. You remember I made a video about the children being stolen and the adoption? You understand what I'm saying? And remember when I said I was in Houston and they had made a whole profile on my daughter talking about she was from Woodland, Texas, and this was her family? I said, who is that? They had a whole family up there that was Mexican. I was like, they are lying. That's not her family on my side or her father's side. And they hurry up and took it down, but I kept all the info. So again, I didn't realize that this was a whole plot for many years. I had no idea. If I hadn't ran into this situation that happened with these bad character, bad behavior people that think that they can do what they want to do, the information wouldn't have never got disclosed to me because they had it in record and I didn't even know. I never even heard of it. I just been living my life. So I'm glad to come across of it. Perfectly glad. I want to answer another person's question. They asked me, they said, are you homeless? Are you this? Yes, I go through homelessness, but that don't mean I'm a dummy or a stupid, and you can't do no any and everything to me, honey. That's exactly why I go get them attorneys. Y'all have lost your mind. You can't just take people. And the problem is, you remember when I explained that people were stealing my content off of my business website? See, they didn't even know that I had an LLC filed right here in Austin. That LLC has been filed for over 5 years. You cannot file a LLC with the state of Texas and file with the comptroller, and you are not a United States citizen. You need to get real. It doesn't work that way. So it just goes to show you that God will allow bad character people to do the dirt that they do so that more information can come out about what the plot and plan and scheme was the whole time. Now, people thought I was just out there being a creative person and just doing stuff and they could just fluke over me. No, I have an actual company. And there's 3 to 4 companies that are filed up under that company. They are all LLCs. They are all documented. I file on them every year, every single year. Even when I wasn't living in the state and I was living out of, I would file on them every single year. I am so glad that I did not close them out because at the time I wasn't using them. And I remember talking to the lady at the Secretary of State. I said, well, or at the comptroller, I said, should I just close them out? I said, because I don't really use them, no way. She said, no, keep them. She said, so when you get ready to use them, you don't have to file again. She said, long as you're not making over a certain amount of money, you can just continue to just file every year to document and report. Now, do you think that if I'm going to file for 5 years, that I supposed to enter this country illegally? Come on, y'all. People were plotting and planning and scheming, and God showed forth who was doing what. And still more information is going to come out. So, guys, to answer your questions, that is about it. You understand what I'm saying? So, what I wanted to say to you is that if you are a United States citizen and someone is plotting on your name and your background, you have a right to stand up and to say what you need to say. You don't have a right to fight against ICE when ICE is doing its job. Why? Because it has nothing to do with you. It's its job. They have to do what they do. But if you got people working in ICE and they jealous of you and they're plotting against you and they working against you and they feigning cases, then that's when you have a right to stand up and you have a right to say something. Guys, you have a beautiful day. Like I said, there are certain things I can't show you guys. You understand what I'm saying? Because I am speaking with an attorney. But just to show you, I have been filed in the state of Austin for over 5 years. Now, I didn't go around telling people, I didn't go around broadcasting it, but just to go to show you, you can't file with the Secretary of State every single year and you're an illegal alien. I'm not illegal. I'm not naturalized. I'm not any of that. I'm a U.S. born citizen. My family has been here many, many, many moons. I have family that has owned, like I said, it's been pointed out that our family member owned a lot of land in Texas. So I would assume that some of that has to do with a targeting, but some of it doesn't. Some of it has to do with people just doing evil things on people's names that they have no business doing. And people get found out. God is not going to allow you to sit there and think you just going to get away with stuff and you just going to keep plotting and it's not going to come out. Everything is going to come out that needs to come out. Especially when you're not living wrong and you're not doing people wrong and they lying on your name. Things are going to come out that need to come out. And just so happened last week, this came out. So I'm very, very glad. I stand by, that things that we need to have controlled borders. I believe in that. You understand what I'm saying? Because there is no nation and no country that does not have their borders protected. So I do believe that our borders should be protected, but because you are jealous of people and you're hating on people and you're feigning cases on people, absolutely not. Glad it all comes out, right? Again, you can't make this stuff up. I got even the stuff that they even was stating on here. But anyway, so guys, you have a blessed one. And yes, my birth certificate, the attorney was sitting there with the birth certificate. She said, I do have your birth certificate. And it does show that you were born in Dallas, Texas. I said, yeah, but it's not just going to go away like that. I'm not just gonna, we're not gonna just say, okay, you got my birth certificate now. We can just go away. No, that was too much of a planned, deceptible case. And that needs to be dealt with. So guys, have a good one.